This is ISUPK, started out of 1 West Harlem, New York in 1969. Up in Harlem, New York under commanding General Yohana. Today we're going to get into, last week was Columbus Day. And like other holidays, our people out here celebrating or, just doing whatever on these days, not knowing the true history, and the true cause of a lot of these white man holidays that was put into play. Columbus Day is another one. Now, Christopher Columbus. And in school, everybody tell you Christopher Columbus was some good guy who did a voyage from Spain, discovered America, came across quote unquote Indians, Native Americans, they ate together, traded together, and Christopher Columbus went on his merry way. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing the true history of what Christopher Columbus did. They don't tell you that part. But in the ISUPK, we break it down. Now, first, I want to get into, because there's a lot of people that don't know that them so-called quote-unquote Indians, Native Americans that was over here, they were actually Israelites, part of the Lost 10 tribes. The Arawak, the Taino people, they were actually Israelites. And they got over here after the Assyrian captivity. They came over here. And I'm going to read that first before I get into how Christopher Columbus came and destroyed these Israelites, destroyed these Hispanics and Native Americans. But first, let's get into second address, 13, and I'm going to start at 39. It says, "And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him." Verse 40, "Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land, time of Osiah the king, whom Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive. And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took their counsel among themselves, that they will leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt." So before the Native Americans came over here, this was an area where no mankind dwelt. That means no mankind was living or has established. Not saying that none of them came over here, nobody else, walked upon there. It said dwelt, lived on. So these 10 tribes, they left that country and they went over there to this land that no mankind dwelt. And that would be North, Central, and South America. We'll keep going. Verse 42, it say that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. So these tribes is gonna come over here. They're gonna keep their statutes. Now, if you pull up Native Americans, you can see the fringes hanging off them. You can see some wearing Shield of David. They wearing their headpiece. You know what I'm saying? They was keeping their statues for the most part. Not all of them, but for the most part, they was keeping their statues. I'm going to keep going. And it say, and never in their own land. So, That's the reason why they was under Assyrian captivity. Because we always going against the Most High. When we keep going, and say, and this is verse 43, and say, and they entered Euphrates by the narrow patches of the river. So this is how they got over here. For the Most High then shewed signs for them, and held still the flood, till they were passed over. Verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go, namely, of a year and a half, and the same region is called Asareth. So it say that it took them a year and a half through the Euphrates, through this narrow passage. The Most High stopped this flood in order for these 10 tribes to get over here into this new land, which is called Asareth. So this is an apocrypha that was second Esdras, starting at 13, verse 39, and I ended at 44, ended at 45. So that was 10 tribes, which you would call the Native Americans, which you would call the Hispanics, the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Dominicans, all of them, Colombians, all of them. Those are the 10 tribes that came over here to this land that never was dwelt. So this is before Christopher Columbus. This is before Christopher Columbus did his voyage or whatever case be. So Christopher Columbus, he first of all strike against him because he didn't find no new world. The 10 tribes was always already living here. They were already here. And obviously, the story tells you that he didn't find this land because when he came over here, he seen Native Americans. And those was the 10 tribes of Israel. The Arawak, the Taino, the Carib, all them, I can get into that later, but all them little nations of Native Americans, little tribes, Native Americans, Hispanics, was already over here when Christopher Columbus got over here. So now let's get into actually what Christopher Columbus came over here to do. Alright, we're going to get into the story. This is the uncomfortable truth. Columbus was a mass killer and a father of the slave trade. Them key words, father of the slave trade, because a lot of people, plus there is some Hispanic Native Americans think they had never in slaves, think they was never in the slave trade, but they actually were, and they actually fall upon the curses of Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, the same as black folk, the same as West Indians, Jamaicans, Haitians, the same way. These Hispanics and Native Americans fall up under the same curses. Now I'm going to read a little bit. It say, Christopher Columbus is a polarizing historical figure whose life has been defined for many by his astonishing courage and intestinal fortitude. Nevertheless, such impressive traits should never blur the fact that he oversaw a murderous quest for material riches that resulted in utter demise of a people. Each year, as Columbus Day comes and goes, a question is raised. Why are we celebrating his life? Christopher Columbus was an immensely talented mariner who navigated the Santa Maria and 2 other smaller ships across the Atlantic Ocean in search for Asia. However, he and his crew inadvertently arrived in the New World on October 12, 1492. So they on accident. I got a story about how he used this right here, second Esdras, that I was reading for his path, for his voyage to get over here. But it say their long and arduous journey was driven by one clear objective: to find and establish a long-term source of wealth, preferably gold, for the king and queen of Spain. In return, Columbus would be allotted 10% of the profits. governorship over the newfound land and awarded a prestigious title of Admiral of the Ocean Sea. Upon arriving in the islands, which we now refer as the Bahamas, Columbus and his crew first encountered the Arawaks. It is it was at that fateful juncture in human history that he made two keen observations regarding these indigenous people. Firstly, they were docile and trusting in nature, because Israelites, you know, we're spiritual people. You know, we can be very, nice people. You look hungry, we feed you. You know how you go to grandma over there at grandma house and she always trying to feed everybody. You and all your friends, she trying to feed. That's just in our nature. That's what Israelites. That's what we was born with. That's what Most High gave us. You know that and these same 10 tribes, these same Native Americans, the Arawaks, when they went over there, because the white man's the devil, and the white man can smell that. It's like a German Shepherd, you know, can just smell how nice they is and a way to get down on these people. And that's the first thing Christopher Columbus noticed, how nice these people is, and how he can get down on them. And keep going. Firstly, they were docile and trusting in nature, and secondly, they wore gold jewelry, and just like King, Solomon, had the gold grill. We always wore the gold grill. That's what we was always shining. That's just what we do. You know what I'm saying? And it say Columbus' own words from his personal journal captured the ominous fate that awaited the Arawaks. This is a quote from it. It say, they do not bear arms, and do not know them. For I showed them a sword. They took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. Their spears are made of cane. They will make fine servants. With 50 men we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. So, the German Shepherd, and the white man, the devil the Bible speaks of, that's the first thing he's thinking about. First thing he's thinking about is how we gonna get down. Because they monsters. They monsters. They think about how the first thing they get. I just seen the story about how this brother backpack brushed against this white woman, and she caused sexual assault. She was just waiting for a way to get down on a brother, black or Hispanic, just waiting for a way, and all she can come up with a backpack brusher. So now it's sexual assault. But let me get back to it. It say the concept of the private property and the pursuit of material riches had reached its frenzied pitch in the 15th century Europe. As an independent contractor, Christopher Columbus recognized the seemingly limitless economic potential of the land that he had, quote, discovered. Like I say, he ain't discovered nothing. He ain't discovered nothing. He just he thought he was going somewhere else. He accidentally came up with land that was already discovered, that was already being dwelt. He didn't discover nothing. They say it was at this point in time that his bravery and he begun to shift to sheer brutality. His transition is captured in many of the notes that he had sent to the King and Queen of Spain to bolster expectations. In one particular note, he promised as much gold as they need and as many slaves as they asked. Soon thereafter, he and his men kidnapped a number of Arawaks and forced them to identify other sources of gold throughout the region. With this intensive arsenal of advanced weaponry horses, Columbus and his men arrived on the islands that were later named Cuba and Hispaniola, the present-day Dominican Republic and Haiti. Upon arrival, the sheer magnitude of gold, which was readily available, set into motion a relentless wave of murder, rape, pillaging, and slavery that would forever alter the course of human history. So, the white man, seen his opportunity of these nice, Native Americans, and instantly, you know, start murdering them, raping them, putting them in slavery for the gold. You know, kill millions of these Arawaks, kill millions of these Tainos, you know, kill millions of the Native Americans and Hispanics. You know, it's a young Catholic priest named Bartholomew de las Casas transcribed Columbus journals and later wrote about the violence he had witnessed. The fact that such crimes could potentially go unnoticed by future generations was deeply troubling to him. He expanded upon the tent of Columbus' reign of terror within the multi-volume book entitled The History of the Indies. There were 60,000 people living on the island, including the Indians, so that so that from 1494 to 1508, over 3 million people had perished from war, slavery, and mines. Who in future generations will believe this? I myself, writing as a knowledgeable eyewitness, can hardly believe it. So, the person that was transcribing, you know, Columbus' journal was a witness to all this. So, you know, I I don't know the nation of, you know, whatever whoever this transcribed, white man, whatever nation is, you know, I know how a lot of y'all black Hispanics, you know, trust in the white man. So this is a white man claiming that at a point in time he eyewitnessed this. So you can't say this did not happen. They say over this 3 million Native Americans was killed. Now, let's skip down. It says such words offer the reader a first-hand account of the state-sponsored genocide that the Spanish Empire had financed through Columbus. Clearly, the intent of the Spanish Empire was to eradicate the islands of the indigenous people through slavery and violence. In doing so, they had further established their already dominant political economic standings within Europe. In a matter of years, Columbus and his men decimated the indigenous people of the Caribbean islands. They wiped them out. They didn't totally wipe them out, but they killed a lot. They murdered a lot of my brothers and sisters. They say the fact that Columbus Day is celebrated each October is a testament to the intellectual dishonesty that stem from the likes of academic teachers and politicians. Like I was just saying, at school they teach you Columbus was a good guy. Columbus discovered this world. We wouldn't be over here if it wasn't Columbus. He came over here. He met the Native Americans. You know, it was all friends. What's that one? That book they have you read with the Pilgrims and Squantos. You know how they was, you know, and how quoting the damn Thanksgiving was started, you know, through Squantos and the Pilgrims, you know, and the whole Christopher Columbus coming over here. He was a good guy, you know, he was good to the Indians, not knowing that he killed 3 million of them. 3 million or plus Native Americans he murdered. I'm starting to say the fact that Columbus Day is celebrated each October is a testament of the intellectual dishonesty that stemmed from the likes of teachers and politicians. It has become an annual ritual that sanitizes history and present half-truths of absolutes. In 1937, Columbus Day was officially established as a federal holiday in the United States. However, to this day, it is not observed in Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, or South Dakota. The other 46 states that observe the holiday acknowledge Christopher Columbus as a superior mariner who had unknowingly found himself in the Caribbean Sea after departing from Europe. Incidentally, in conjunction with these facts, it would be quite fair to label Columbus as one of the founding fathers of the transatlantic slave trade. Unfortunately, such an unpleasant truth has been relegated to the background of history. So, so this writer said that it's safe to say He is the father of the transatlantic slave trade. And I know y'all know the transatlantic slave trade. That's where y'all think only blacks came from Africa over here. Nah, that's not true. Hispanics, Native Americans, and blacks. The 12 tribes of Israel were put on them boats. The 12 tribes of Israel that was under those curses, that Moses was like, you will know these people from these curses that's happening in Deuteronomy 28, happened to so-called African Americans, so-called Native Americans, and so-called Hispanics. We're gonna go to another story. We're gonna go to another story about the genocide, and I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read. Before I read that, let me go to. I'm up. Let me go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And let me go ahead and read. This is verse 68. Now, this is what, you know, we got them one Old Testament Israelites, or we got them Israelites that don't think that Hispanics and Native Americans, you know, are Israelites because they don't fit under the curses. Well, I just read that Columbus is the father of the transatlantic slave trade. So that's in 1492. You know, we wasn't shipped over here to about the early 1600s, and that was 1492. That was over 100 years. Over 100 years, he would be the father of the transatlantic slave trade. No, that means he started it. But from this scripture right here, where y'all don't think the Hispanics, don't think the Native Americans right here, from this scripture right here, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. And that Egypt is bondage, the house of bondage, tell you in Exodus, gonna bring you back in slavery with ships, by the whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And now buy you is to redeem you. There's no you know, Cesar Chavez, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, none of these brothers could redeem you. None of the brothers can get you out of there. But that was a scripture where it was prophesied that black, Hispanic, and Native American was gonna go onto these ships. And what did they say? Christopher Columbus was the father of the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade. He was the father. Now let's go into that story that I was gonna get into. Now this is Columbus and the genocide. It says the discoverer of the New World was responsible for the annihilation of the peaceful Arawak Indians. So once again, the white man is the devil the Bible speaks of. To even think about, you know, that's how you know he a monster. Just to see peaceful people, you know, help them, lend a hand to them, you know, and just a snake that they is. To be thinking about murdering these people, killing these people. I can somewhat understand if they came over here, they was just arrow shot at them. You know what I'm saying? So they feel like they had to defend themselves or go to war. These people was peaceful people. And this monster, this snake, was thinking about murdering these people. Let's say on April 17, 1494, Fernanda and Isabella, the Catholic monarchs of Castile, signed a Contemplation of Santa Fe, the agreement by which Christopher Columbus, one-time wool weaving apprentice in Savona, Italy, undertook a voyage of discovery to the western Atlantic. Columbus was in his 41st year. After forsaking his father's loom in the Savona, he had spent some 9 years in obscurity in Portugal, where his only known occupation were those of petty trader in sugar for the Italian commercial firm and maker of the purveyor of maps and marine charts in collaboration with his younger brother Bartolome. During this period, he married a poor but aristocratic young Portuguese woman who bore him a son. He also supposedly made one or more sea voyages in an unidentified capacity. Sometime in those years, he had conceived an enterprise of discovery. Finding no acceptance of it in Portugal, he had come to Castile in the early months of 1485 after his wife's death. There he had there he had eked out precarious living as an itinerant peddler of books and maps, exiting partly into charitable handouts from notable patrons who he had managed and interest in his enterprise. Now, now this say, now the fruition of his dream was in hand. It say Columbus one. Columbus was an admiral of all the islands and mainland and the ocean sea, which by his hand and industry he would discover and acquire. The title to be hereditary and and the office to be equal to premises and prerogatives to that of High Admiral in Castile. He will be Viceroy and Governor General of all said islands and mainlands. In a subsequent royal provision signed, and a few days later, Columbus was specifically granted the power as Admiral, Viceroy, Governor. Slack. He and dispatched all civil criminal proceedings pertaining to the said offices and admiralty, viceroy, and governorship, and the punish of castigate of delinquents. So this is just breaking down, you know, from the beginning what he is and how he became. He started off, you know, a little peddler of sugar and became an admiral, became a viceroy. You know, he basically ran the ocean sea. Ocean sea was his. Whatever islands, whatever land he went to, he was a governor over those lands. I'm gonna skip down. Let me skip all the way down. Slocky. I'm gonna go to the next story because this is basically getting to his life. Like, let's go to the next story. Now, this is called Indian Slaves and Mass Murder: The Hidden History. So, while while y'all over here, you know, celebrating Columbus Day, whatever y'all do on Columbus Day, you know, you know, in actual words, it was a mass murder and slavery of Native Americans and Hispanics. Yes, you Mexicans, yes, you Puerto Ricans, you Cubans. Y'all over here celebrating Columbus Day. You know, like I said, I don't know what y'all do. I don't know if y'all eat barbecue or whatever the case might be. Whatever y'all do, you know, y'all celebrating the mass murder, the slavery that Christopher Columbus put y'all through. That's all. That, like I said, he came over here, you know, to kill and to take and to steal. That's what he came over here to do. Whatever they tell you off in, you know, in school, whatever they telling you off in you know, wherever them colleges or whatever, that he was a good guy. He was nowhere near a good guy. He should not be celebrated, especially by you black, Hispanic, Native Americans. I don't care what any other nation, any white folk, any white folk, African folk, Arab, I don't care what they celebrate, but you black, Hispanic, and Native Americans should not be, first of all, you shouldn't be celebrating no holiday that's under the white man. And second of all, you know, when you celebrating Christmas, you basically spitting on your ancestors. That's what you basically doing. Now let's get to the story. It say the European market and the African slaves, which opened the cargo of blacks, unloaded into Portugal in 1441, and the explorer Christopher Columbus, born in Geno 10 years later, were closely linked. The ensuing age of discovery, with the expansions of empires and exploitation of the New World natural resources, was accompanied by seizure and forced labor of human beings, starting with the Native Americans. So, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Yes, Native Americans was put on boats. Native Americans was slaves. It's a appraising that commercial opportunity came naturally to the entrepreneur like Christopher Columbus, as did his sponsors, pressured on him to find precious metals, and his religion's contradictory concerns both to protect and convert heathens. On the day of Columbus 1992 on an island in present-day Bahamas, and saw its Taino islanders, he wrote that with 50 men they could all be subjected and made to do all that one wished. Soon the African trade was changing life in Spain. Within another 100 years, most urban families own one or more black servants. Over 7% of Seville was black, and a new social grouping of mixed race mulattoes joined the lowering rungs of a color coded social ladder. Columbus, like the affectionate and without malice Arawakan speaking Taino natives, he found the men tall, handsome, and good farmers. Leave it to the white man, you know. Leave it to the white and his homo nature. So I could define them handsome. Say find them tall and handsome. Leave it to the white man, homo nature. Slocky. He found the men tall, handsome, and good farmers. The women comely, near naked, and apparently available, in exchange for glass beads, brass hawk bells, and silly red caps. The scam man received cotton threads, parrots, and food from native gardens. Fresh fish and fruits were abundant. Glints in the ornaments worn by the natives promised gold, and they presumably knew where to find more. Aside from the flare up, there were no serious hostilities. Columbus returned to Barcelona with 6 Taino natives who were paraded as curiosities, not chattel, before King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. The following year, Columbus led 16 ships that dropped 1,500 prospective settlers on the Caribbean beaches. As they stayed on, relations with the local Indians degenerated. What was soon imposed was the other slavery that the University of California Davis historian Andres Resendez discusses in his synthesis of the last half century of scholarship on the American Indian enslavement. First came the demand for miners to dig for gold. The easygoing Tainos were transferred into gold panners working under Spanish overseers. The Spaniards, who exploited the forms of human bondage that already existed on the islands. The Caribs of the lesser until the more aggressive tribe regularly raided the towns, allegedly eating the men but keeping the women and children as retainers. A similar discrimination based on age and gender will prevail throughout the next 4 centuries of Indian on Indian servitude. As Bonnie Martin and James Brooks put in their anthology, linking the histories of slavery, North America and its borderlands. So once again, that's proof that the Native Americans, well, you know, my proof is in the Bible. I don't like calling any white man proof, but y'all like the white man, so I'm gonna say proof for y'all. This is proof for y'all, and this is Native Americans were slaves. Can't get past that. Can't get past Deuteronomy 28th chapter under the curses. We gonna be sold, you know, to our enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and 99% of Native Americans know the white man is the devil. They know that. Blacks, you know, blacks and Hispanics, you know, for some reason, half of them, majority of them, don't know that, you know. But a lot of the Native Americans, they know what happened to them. Now, this said North America was vast, pulsing map of trading, raiding, and resettling. Whether the systems were pre or post contract, indigenous, European, colonial, or U.S. national, they grew into complex cultural matrices, matrices in which the economic wealth and social power created using slavery proved indivisible. Indigenous and Euro-American slave systems evolved and innovated into response to each other. So these white men, including Christopher Columbus, Columbus Day, knew they could benefit from slavery. They knew that. Christopher Columbus, even that was it this story, the last story, they said even was 10 years before Columbus, you know, where they seen that slavery was good. But when Columbus came, he looked at it and was like, boom, he seen these Arawaks, he seen these Taino Indians, the first thing he thought was slavery. You see that quote that it keeps saying that, he said he seen these people and he know he can do whatever he want to do. He can do whatever he want to do to these people. Then he said these people didn't even know about guns, swords. They touch the air and cut themselves, so they knew they can do whatever. And that first thing they do is like, let's murder them, let's rape them, let's put them to slavery, let's make them go mine our gold. You know how they call it? They say our gold. When that's in, even white man always comes tell us something, and this is our land. They be like, this is our land. When they came and stole this land, they came and stole everything. Well, they gonna claim everything. As soon as they steal it, they gonna say our gold, our land. Let me read a little bit more. It says Tayanos, who resisted the Spanish, were set upon by dogs, disemboweled by swords, burned at the stakes, trampled by horses, and atrocities to which no chronicle could ever do justice. It say a crusade. It say wrote by Frere Bartolome de la Casas, a crusader for Indian rights in 1542. Against the Caribs, the Spaniards had a tougher time, fighting pitched battles but capturing hundreds of slaves as well. Columbus sailed home from the second voyage with over 1,000 captives. Now this is Deuteronomy 28 right here. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. Columbus sailed. So don't try to say that Hispanics and Native Americans were never on the boat. They don't fit under the curses. I'm reading it right now. Columbus sailed home from his second voyage with over 1,000 captives bound for slave auctions in Candace. Many died en route, their bodies tossed overboard. The same with us. The same with black folks. Same, many black folks just jumped over. Many was thrown over. Millions actually. Before he even got over here, millions died. Same way with these Native Americans. Same way. I'm gonna read that again. They say Columbus sailed home from his second voyage with over 1,000 captives bound for slave auctions in Candace. Many died en route, their bodies tossed overboard. He envisions a future market for New World gold, spices, cotton, and many slaves as their majesties ordered to make from among those who are idolaters, whose sales might underwrite subsequent expeditions. Thus did the discoverer of the New World become a first. Uh, Once again, that other story say he's a father. Now this one say it's first transatlantic human trafficker, a sideline pursued by most New World conquistadors until in the mid 17th century Spain officially opposed slavery, and Columbus' vision of the reverse Middle Passage crumbled. After a while, the Spaniards said they don't want no more Native Americans, but we don't want them. We want African slaves now. When they say African slaves, we know that they talking about black folks, not African, not Hamites. They talking about Israelites, black men, Shemites. That's who they wanted now. They say we don't want no more Native Americans. Even though they all the same people, they don't look at them like that. But we are all the same people. Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans are all the same people. They say we don't want no more Native Americans, Hispanics. We want African, which is really blacks. Oh, Slovakia. They say Indians were more expensive to acquire, insufficiently docile, harder to train, unreliable over the years, and susceptible to homesickness, seasickness, and European diseases. Other obstacles included misgivings by the church and royal authorities, which may explain Columbus' emphasis on idolaters, like the Caribs, whose status as enemies and cannibals made them more legally eligible for enslavement. So, the Arawaks and the Tayanos, they became seasick, homesick. They had to travel. They had to bring them from over here all the way over there. They said it was homesickness, and it was, because when they was over there, when they was over here in the north, they didn't know nothing about them white man diseases. They didn't know nothing about no white man disease, no chicken pox, no STDs, none of that. So when they come, they brought them from the north or brought them from the west over to the east. With them, they start becoming sick, seasick, homesickness. They start dying off. So they was too docile. Where they was hard to train because they was just too docile. So they said, let's start getting these Caribs, because they was enemies, but, they was more eligible to be put into slavery. They said Indians suffered from overwork in the gold beds, as well as foreign pathogens against which they had no antibodies, and from famine as a result of overhunting and underfarming. Within 2 generations, the native Caribbean population faced a cataclysmic decline. On the island of Hispaniola, alone, of its estimated 300,000 indigenous population, over 11,000 Tainos remained alive by 1517. Within 10 more years, 600 or so villages were empty. But even as the Caribbean was ethnically cleansed of its original inhabitants, a case of bad conscience struck Iberia. It had its origins in the oblivions of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella over how to treat Indians. In the spring of 1495, only 4 days after the royal advised their bishop in charge of foreign affairs that slaves would be more easily sold in Andalusia than any other part. They ordered a halt to the all human enslavement until the church informed them whether we can sell them or not. Outrage was more overt in the polemics of Las Casas, who had immigrated into the islands of 1502. Man, these damn Spaniards got the crazy names, man. Can hardly pronounce them. He had owned slaves and then renounced the practice of 1515. After taking his vows as a Dominican priest, he helped to push the anti-slavery new laws of the Indies through the Spanish legal system in 1492. So, and that story is called Indian Slaves and Mass Murder: The Hidden History. And it's more of that story. You know, it's a long story. It's like you've been here for 2 hours, but you get the point. While y'all out here, celebrating Christopher Columbus, celebrating his voyage, celebrating, him quote unquote discovering the New World, which was not discovered because the 10 tribes was already here. Y'all accidentally y'all actually by default celebrating the mass murder, enslavement of your people Hispanics, of your people Native Americans, of your people black folk, when you up there celebrating Christopher Columbus, the Columbus Day. He ain't found nothing. That dirty white man didn't find nothing. He didn't find all he know he had the Apocrypha, you know, and he's reading the second address, because he is Catholic, so this is they took the Apocrypha, so he had the Apocrypha. He had the means to get the Apocrypha. He was reading second address, and he's seen how these people, these 10 tribes, went through this narrow passage, went through the Euphrates and went through this narrow passage, so he knew that he could come upon these people, these 10 tribes. And what happened? He came upon these 10 tribes. He went there, shook their hand, smiled in their face like a snake do, brought a few back, paraded them around, like, look at these people, look at them. Took them back and murdered them all. It's like, not all of them, because these brothers and sisters are still around. These brothers and sisters are still here, till this day. But murdered a high percentage of them. A high percentage of these Arawaks, the Taínos, Native Americans. Native Americans. And we know about the history of Christopher Columbus, the history of the conquistadors, and then the history of the Europeans. Each of them were, the 12 tribes went enslavement under. The Christopher Columbus had most of the Native Americans. The conquistadors went and got like the Incas, the Mayans, most of the Mexicans, and then everybody know the Europeans came and brought, the blacks, as in the Judah, Levi and Benjamin over here. So following Columbus Day, you following the enslavement of your brothers and sisters. And I don't want to hear nothing about, Hispanics or Native Americans wasn't on no boats. Because these white men, I just read 3 stories. Three stories of them saying that, one, that Christopher Columbus is the father of the transatlantic slave trade, or the first transatlantic slave trader. He was the first one or the father, whichever one you want to quote. Whichever you want to quote. Because he took thousands of Tainos, Arawaks, you know what I'm saying, Caribs. He put them on the boat, took them back to Spain for slave auctions. You know, he still had them over there mining gold for him. You know what I'm saying? Same way, the same way in the 1600s, because even before, you know, the 1600s, when we got taken off the African coast, we was already in between time. Some of them was obviously already going into slavery under the Spaniards. You know, from that they was off it, but you know, the big one is when we was taken off that African shore. You know, and brung over here. Most of us died on our way here. Whatever case we got here, we died, we got beaten, right? The same thing that happened to these Native Americans happened to black folk. Or let me put it like this: the same thing that happened to black folk happened to Native Americans. The same thing. Y'all was on the boats. Y'all was getting hung. Y'all was getting raped. And getting raped too, I want to get into that just real quick. And when they say getting raped, that don't mean that every last single woman, Native American or black or Hispanic was raped. And it don't mean that every single one had a kid. Because look at today. We got millions of rapists. But there ain't millions of kids had by these rapists. I just wanna put that out there when they say rape. And not every last black, or not every last Hispanic, and not every last Native American woman or man or whatever the case may be was raped. But the same thing that happened to them, the same thing happened to us, and we all fall under that Deuteronomy 28th chapter. And what I need you to do is get on isupk.com, because we got free classes Monday through Friday. You know, 7 to 9. We got them. We got them every day of the week, but 7 to 9. You know, and on Mondays, Commander General Johanna, he has a radio show, which is tonight at 9 o'clock to 11. He has a radio show in which you tune in. But the only thing that's gonna stop us from not having this happen again, not having a Columbus tree happen again, is brotherhood, and that's getting up on the one body of Christ, which is the ISUPK. Shalom.